Welcome to OreAni. Uh, it's kind of complicated to explain that name, but here we are for today for the end of the season, 2018 fall, and with us, as always, it's our group of friends from Anime Talk. We have Albert.
Hello. Happy New Year.
Yeah, I can't remember how you say that, but in Japanese. How do you say it in Japanese again?
Usually, 明けましておめでとうございます。
Yeah. 明けましておめでとう, Albert. Jessica.
No gozaimasu for you.
Hello, Akeomi.
Akeome.
We have Nick.
Yo.
We have the chat, also known as Sean.
What's anime again?
And Vincent. I think Vincent's going to be there too.
Wait, yeah, Vincent's with us in heart. Chat hype, yeah. We have me with all these weird things all around my screen. Tenkun, and yeah, that's all of us. It's a great new year. First video of the year, right? We've been doing this for 6+ years. Still going strong. Today, we're going to cover at the start here. Bunny Senpai. Oh, you can't read that at all. Okay, there we go. Bunny Girl Senpai. I'm sorry. It's Bunny Girl Senpai. Let me clarify that. Also known as some really long name. Seishun Buta Yaro wa Bunny Girl Senpai no Yome wa Minai.
That sounds like a light novel if I've ever heard one.
You would be
Although
correct.
if you're going to watch it in English, it looks like they're going to go with the English title of Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai.
I hate that title.
I usually do.
Yeah.
It's so awkward. Oh, geez, Sean.
Sean is here with our Bunny Girls. Yes.
Rocking the
chat.
bunny emojis.
So
Rascal does not dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. It's one of the more obscure Philip K. Dick novels.
I'm going to actually want to start with Jessica because Jessica wasn't on this train. And then when we talked about it last hangout, she decided to check it out, right?
Yes. Well, all I had to go on was the synopsis and the key art image of the bunny girl, and bunny girls aren't really my thing. I mean, if there's no maid in there, why bother watching it, right?
How do you like Cat Girl but not Bunny Girl?
But then you guys said that you highly recommended it and that I should check it out. And so I did. I gave it a shot and I really liked it. The protagonist actually grows throughout the series, which is not something you typically see with a supernatural harem romance. And the fact that he actually has a relationship with his senpai, they're dating, mild spoiler. That was really refreshing and nice to see because it removes all of the will they, won't they crap that tends to clutter up the narratives of these types of shows. And I think my favorite scene was when Sakuta was lying on the floor after he'd talked with Mai, and he was just so happy that he had a girlfriend that he put the pillow on his face and was going, ee! I thought that was adorable. So, yeah. I liked it.
Well, with going for favorite scenes, my favorite scene was when he asked her out and she said no, and he's like, okay, I guess that's it. Goodbye. She freaked out.
Yeah, like the 30th time. You
You
know,
have Albert with the light novel cover, right?
Yes, that's correct. So it's based on a light novel series, as you, Sean, correctly surmised from the long S title. It's the title is actually from the first volume, and each volume is different. So if you are watching the OP, all the other titles actually show up in there. So they, in this 13 episode series, they adapted 5 volumes of the light novels. So they did a pretty amazing job to cram all that content into the TV series and have it maintain, a high quality, each story making sense. Some of them only had like 2 episodes to tell the story, and yet I thought they did a terrific job. So I really did enjoy it quite a bit, and the series takes place in an area in Kanagawa Prefecture, specifically in Fujisawa. So I liked it so much that I did what a Japanese otaku would do and go visit the site. So I'm just going to show you a couple of pictures of that, since I have a captive audience. Ha ha ha. All right, so this is a picture of the Enoden train that you see in the opening, and then a couple other shots. This is the Enoshima station, and obviously the locals know that this is ongoing and quite popular. So I'm walking from the train station to Enoshima, which is a tourist. It's an island, but there's a lot of tourism there, and all these banners are all over the place, advertising, saying, welcome to Enoshima. The island that you see in the back is Enoshima, and the bridge that you see, Bentenbashi, I think is also shown in a couple of the episodes. I think it shows up prominently in the second arc, where he's trying to help out his kohai. So there's that. Enoshima itself also has banners, and it's famous for having 3 main shrines. This is the first one. It's also known to have, if you go there and pray, you're supposed to have good love connections. So they have these pink ema where you write your name and some wishes with your girlfriend, boyfriend, significant other, and then you post it. And that's a view from higher up. You can actually walk or take the escalator. The second shrine. They also have a famous taco senbei, and so that is a whole octopus squashed into a senbei,
Cracker.
Rice cracker. Yeah, it's they were using, I think, a wheat based. I don't think it was rice based, but anyway. And that is the mainland from up on the little tower observation deck that you saw. And the beaches on the left and the right of this bridge on the other side, that's where some of the episodes take place, and that's where Sakuta meets one of the other characters, Shoko-san. Right. And Enoshima itself will be the event. It will host the events in the 2020 Olympics for the yachting events, which they did back in the 60s also. And so, yeah, it's this is from the beach on the mainland. That's not Enoshima that you see in the back. That's just part of the peninsula jutting out. But windsurfers and sandy beaches. So there you go. So yes, I made a pilgrimage. Yep, that's correct.
Thank you.
Did you come across any puberty syndrome while you were there?
None that I saw, because I'm a middle-aged man. I don't think I would even recognize it if I saw it.
You probably passed Bunny Girl Senpai and didn't even notice.
Yeah, that would be sad.
Oh,
Well-
Tsuritama took place at Enoshima. I
Yeah,
thought I
it
remember
did.
that name.
Enoshima Dawn.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a couple of other, I think, anime that also takes place, or it's used in like live action films as a location.
Yeah, it seems
So
picturesque.
yeah, the train
Man, it's also
station
really small.
that's closest is Fujisawa, and so Fujisawa is where it actually a lot of this takes place. The Bunny Girl Senpai story.
Hmm.
And so the background, the train station that you see in the opening where he's walking away, that's Fujisawa Station.
Oh, I see.
But yeah, but from Fujisawa Station, you can ride the Enoden, the train that you see, and get to Enoshima and walk across the bridge. So, yeah, but that's just a side note. So, in terms of the anime itself, I did enjoy it. I'm actually putting it in my top 4 for last year, 2018. It's in 4th place, mainly because I kind of like the main character. He's just a pretty average guy with a cynical view of the world because of things that happened to his sister, and but he still does have some friends. He's not a complete loner. He doesn't try to make friends, but he doesn't actively reject them either. And he comes across all these girls with adolescent syndrome, as they call it, or puberty syndrome, depending on the translation, and tries to help them because he feels he was not able to help his sister, and the kind of the guilty feelings that he has propels him to try to become a better person and to help these girls. So a lot of people compare to like Monogatari series. I don't really think that's a very good comparison because there's a lot of things that are way different. The only thing is the premise, right? The main character happens to come across supernatural things, but in like Monogatari, OreAni doesn't actually help a lot of them. Things just resolve on their own. It's kind of like what Oshino says in the story. I don't help you. You did it yourself. And that series is popular because of the involvement of Shaft and the incredible artistry behind all the animation. But that's not the case here. It's much more character driven, much more dialogue driven. And I actually enjoyed quite a bit of that, although I suspect that the translation makes it seem stilted because a lot of people that I have watched on like YouTube have complained that the dialogue felt stilted or that high schoolers don't talk like that. I was watching it and listening to it in Japanese, and I don't feel any kind of weird sense that it was out of place. So it may be a translation thing.
Or it could just be the way the lines are delivered too, is that my son is kind of a no-nonsense, deadpan type of character where she'll say something funny, but she won't emote it very much, and that's part of the humor.
Yeah, I agree. And many of the other, characters have their own personality that they don't quite fit into a trope. So that's something that I enjoyed, and I thought that all the voice actors, did a good job. And I will say that some tears may have caressed my face as I watched several episodes. So yeah.
See, I get what you're saying. I wouldn't call it exactly like Bakemonogatari, because also what Bakemono had going for it was its use of puns that don't easily translate into English. So that was a really difficult series. And, Shaft doesn't try to get a lot of background characters. They're pretty character minimalistic usually. And in Bakemono, they did a lot of stuff to switch up what was happening on screen to make up for its dialogue-heavy nature, which doesn't have to happen here. I see the correlation to Bakemonogatari only because the puberty syndrome here it's very arced. There's usually one girl with an affliction at any given time, and although there's no it's not a character like Oshino. He also goes to another classmate anytime something happens, who ends up with an affliction of her own at one point. So that's kind of where it differs a little bit. But one of the interesting things about this series is how it had supernatural-esque phenomenon, but they always try to correlate it with science, which doesn't usually happen in Bakemonogatari. So I don't know how I felt about the science sometimes. Sometimes it was rather elaborate and kind of a cool way to like shoehorn this scientific theory into anime. But at the same time, it didn't really help explain why certain stuff was going on. And for example, I think a lot of characters, there's a character who used science to explain how the puberty syndrome came to either afflict the character or how it could be resolved, like what its roots were, what was going on. But there's actually the two siblings, the main protagonist of the show, was Asuaga Sakuta and his sister Kaede. They never really get explained as to what was happening to them, because they kind of have the syndrome too, but we never had that, here's what I think's going on and here's the resolution. But that said, I actually had a lot of moments when watching this anime that almost seemed like it was a Honeyworks special. Honeyworks is a band that likes to provide music to a lot of anime. They had a song animated, like I think it became an anime, and some of their songs are used as a backdrop for certain anime projects. And I thought I saw a connection because the studio who worked on this thing was Cloverworks, and I was like, oh, Cloverworks, Honeyworks, and no, there was no connection there. Cloverworks is just its own studio, and when I saw the name Works correlated in the opening sequence, I was all like, oh, I think I'm onto something, and then I massively wasn't. Oh well. But yeah, it was largely an enjoyable series. I do really want to own this thing, and it's crazy how not intricate the story was, but like how it would present its story, and even kind of like the reveal at the end, which I won't necessarily spoil here, but it kind of gave me a lot of retrospect on the piece, because they revealed a little bit more of a backstory of a character who was there all along. And I kind of like it when anime do something like that, because then it kind of makes you reflect on the relationship thus far from the get-go. It's like very few pieces can kind of do that, where they just drop this piece of information and it kind of totally brings a whole new angle to the animation that you've already seen. So that's kind of what instead of, I guess because Tank earlier was asking for like favorite moments, I guess the final arc was kind of my favorite moment, because, or at least the final arc thus far. I don't know if it'll get like technically a second series, because there was one thing that wasn't explained so far. But I liked the element of Kaide's not puberty syndrome, but her, after that was resolved, the aftermath of the affliction itself onto her as a person was one of the more interesting things about the whole series to me.
I also agree that I think that the last story arc was probably one of the strongest, because it hit so many emotional notes for a lot of different characters.
I'm going to have to kind of the opposite of all of you, where I didn't like the ending at all.
No?
No. I don't know what it was about it. Just something bugged me. I didn't feel complete. I guess I just wanted more suffering for. Like I like it when there's like this big thing that happens at the end, and there's just big pain, and it just. I think it got resolved too fast for me, and I was like, "Oh, he didn't suffer enough," or I don't know. That's just me, but overall, the show was really fun to watch. I was excited every Wednesday for it to come on Crunchyroll and start watching it, and was really extremely happy. Now, I know we mentioned about the light novel, but there's also a manga that came out for just the first arc. that only covers the Bunny Girl Senpai that I've read a year ago or so. So it's been out in manga form for a while. So when I started watching this, I knew somewhat what was going to happen at the beginning. But other than that, the opening song, like normally I skip all openings and endings, but every time it just started it, with its whole, I had to watch it. So it had a really good hook at the beginning. So it's one of the few openings that I watch consistently, or at least listen to. I didn't really watch it, but because usually the openings have spoilers and such, so I tend to always try to skip it. But the only thing that really bothered me throughout the whole season was why she had that hair clip in the back of her head.
Ooh.
I don't know why. Just the bunny girl, her bunny thing clip. It's always on the back side of her head. Not the
That
two in the
bothered me
front.
too.
There's one on the back, and every time I saw that, I'm like, why does she have it on the back? It doesn't make sense. And it was just a small thing, but it always made my eyes go straight to it and be like, why? But good story, good flow, everything. Like I said, it's just a personal preference for me for the ending that I didn't enjoy, but
I think maybe that's because things aren't resolved, right? Because the Shoko-san story will be in the movie that is coming out early summer, late spring, early summer. So yeah, that arc is not complete in a sense.
maybe that's it. But yeah, like with Kaede, I don't know, just the way they like made him back. I don't know, it just bugged me. And then of course, his wound came back or whatever. Spoilers. Just but it kind of went past that really fast too, and I was just like,
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I was getting at, where I didn't see the resolution to that, and kind of like what Albert says, we might get that in the movie. It's hard to say.
Oh no, it is that arc in the movie. The title says it, so
maybe
No,
that's
I
why.
meant for like the protagonist and his sister and the other character, all three together.
So maybe that's why I didn't enjoy the ending, but
the movie will cover Shoko's arc, basically.
Yeah, but what I was saying earlier is we never really figured out what was happening to the siblings together, like how the social media puberty syndrome was scientifically explained through the one character through the one Oshino-like character. Like that never happened.
I don't think it's resolved yet.
Yeah.
Because the light novel series is still ongoing. There is a follow-up arc for Kaede, and then I think there's one other volume after that. So it could be that, and you actually, it's hard to say about Kaede and her syndrome, and also about her medical condition, whether they're completely unrelated, like some people think, or if they're actually related, like I think. And I actually have not read beyond the first, so I don't know. By the way, there is a second 2-volume manga covering the second arc. Tank.
I'm gonna have to check that out then. It's probably not under the same name, right?
It's under the second title, which would be Rascal Does Not Dream of Petite Devil Kohai.
What?
They're so good with their naming sense. But yeah. Love the show. Hope to watch the movie. Hopefully it comes to the US.
Oh, it probably will. But that's
With Crunchyroll, not Aniplex, so that I don't have to drive 8 hours. So
no, that's honestly getting a lot better. I can't say I don't think I've seen a Crunchyroll film. Which one would you have seen?
Well, No Game No Life was broadcast by Crunchyroll, wasn't it?
Yeah, but
Uh,
like the anime movies that show here in the States are usually dubbed, and so the dubbing is through Funimation. So if it has to be a title that Funimation carries, I believe like My Hero Academia movie that did quite well. I think that was through Funimation, not Crunchyroll.
yeah, I don't think I've seen a Funimation or maybe Crunchyroll, but I know Crunchyroll did a lot of movie nights where they like did like big screen presentations of anime that like were either initially screening, like we're gonna put episode one, or we're gonna showcase the whole like Yuri on Ice season. I think they did Attack on Titan and Yuri on Ice that way. But in all honesty, it's just anything Fathom is pretty widespread, and Fathom gets most of them. But I can't. I'm trying to recall what Crunchyroll did. I don't think I've seen anything through them because it's mostly been like the screenings. But every movie
Well,
that I've seen, there's only a few of them that did a dub only. Typically, there's a day that they have set for the sub, and then a day they have set for the dub. There are some exceptions to this, but that's 9 times out of 10 how it's been over here thus far.
sure for like certain things, but like I think this week there's going to be a Mob Psycho 100 season 2 premiere at one of these events. That's a single night event, as far as I know.
Yeah.
And I think that might be Crunchyroll, but don't quote me on that, as I
Yeah,
don't
like they
know.
haven't done many movies. They've mostly been doing those like movie nights of premiere episodes or seasons.
Yeah, no, okay, I found it. So yeah, it is Crunchyroll bringing it to U.S. theaters. So it looks like it's tomorrow night, January 7th. So you might want to go check it out. Check out Fathom Events.
It actually says on their main site January 5th, in select theaters January 5th, 2019 only.
Oh, that was yesterday. Well, we're too late.
Nick, you're slacking on your job.
It's not a movie. It's a season 2 premiere. Okay, look, I'm on the site right now. They also did Yuri on Ice season. Okay, Haikyuu the movie, Bungo Stray Dogs the movie. Didn't see those. Card Captor Sakura, the I guess movie. Black Clover, but they didn't have a movie. The Ancient Magus Bride, I do know they did, but that was also like a premiere. And Cabaneri of the it's mostly been stuff.
The Studio Ponok three-part movie. Well, no, 3 short stories in one movie will be this week too. Go to G Kids or Fathom Events. So Studio Ponok is the one that did Mary and the Witch's Flower. Is that the right title?
Is that the one I was complaining that I forget which movie it was, but like on G Kids, the official site, they have 2 separate sites right now. They have gkids.com films, and then they have a brand new ticket site. And one of the things that they did, you had to like go through the G Kids website to grab the ticket site. It led you to their ticket site, but like they didn't have the listing on their actual like navigable through their main page ticket site. You had to go in through their sister site to get to that ticket listing on their ticket site. It's like, what?
I don't know about that because I just go to my local Cinemark movie, which carries Fathom Events, so that's where I go.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go ahead and move on to the next title. We'll get some more information on movies and post it on Anime Talk, hopefully, so we can make sure we watch those movies we want to get to. So next up, I have on here, which is Irozoku Sekai no Ashita Kara. I have no idea what this is.
What? You horrible person.
Me neither.
It looks
It was streaming
colorful.
on Amazon.
Yes,
Oh.
it was.
Whoa, what's that? Magical.
What does that subtitle say? so many colors in the future. What a wonderful world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's another one that doesn't translate very well. So they, for the most part, it looks like Wiki is showing it as Irozuku, the world in colors. So this is a PA Works, and of course, the last PA Works that involved any kind of time travel was Glasslip, which is an awful show.
Oh, it was terrible.
So I was not going to watch this because this is APA Works with an ensemble cast and it's about time travel. Or so I thought, but by around episode 3, there was enough people recommending it to me that I decided to check it out. And I got kind of sucked in and I watched the entire 13 episode and I'm actually glad that I did because it ended up being very good. And so I think Jessica was one of the people who recommended this and said you should give it a try because it's actually good and so on. And so, you know, it involves time travel, but it basically is episode 1 and episode 13 of that. Hitomi is, so this is kind of a alternate Japan where a little bit of magic does exist. It's mainly small things like, you know, making illusions or having good dreams, things of that nature, right? So things that you would normally associate with, I don't know, like horoscopes or amulets, just everyday things. It's not things like flying through the air and being able to move mountains. It's not that kind of magic. But right at the beginning, Hitomi is a teenager. I think she's 16 or 17. And she does not like herself because she comes from a magic user's family. She herself can use apparently magic, but she hates it. And because of this, she is not able to see any colors. She just sees black and white. Right? And it's not because her eyesight is bad or anything like that. She just doesn't have a sense of color anymore. And so her grandmother decides to send her back in time, 60 years, to when she, the grandmother, was, you know, a teenager, the same age as Hitomi. So I think that's like 17. So grandma is like 77, although she does not look like a 77-year-old. But that's Japan. So that's the premise. You know, Hitomi finds herself in a different time, same location, which is actually in Nagasaki. So not set in Tokyo, which is another kind of enjoyable thing about this show. And yeah, it's about her trying to, you know, find out why her grandmother sent her here and trying to come to grips with who she is. So it's again kind of a coming of age story. It's a female protagonist, you know, lots of friends, or at first she doesn't have any, obviously, but the family, Hitomi's grandmother's family at that time accepts her for fully who she is. And, you know, she essentially has a second family and a second life. And during this short visit, she tries to find out why she was sent back in time. Yeah. And I found it very moving. I found that the characters change and grow, and there's a lot of character growth, and you do, you know, discover some of the reasons why things are like Hitomi couldn't see colors and things like that, right? But it's mostly about character development and character growth. Jessica?
A nice thing that I liked about it is that it's a very stressless program to watch. Is a lot of times when you have someone who's time traveling, what's the cardinal rule? You can't tell anyone you're from the future, right? Well, Hitomi tells her grandmother, Kohaku, basically, you sent me back here. Your future self sent me back here. I'm a time traveler. And not only does Kohaku accept it, but Kohaku's parents, Kohaku's grandmother accepts it, and all of the other students that she befriends acceptance. accept it. So there's no worry that, oh no, they're gonna find out I'm from a different time. And the entire anime is gentle that way. I wouldn't necessarily say it's an Iyashiki anime, but it's really, really close to being that, because as Hitomi heals from her past trauma and learns to love herself, it has that rippling effect on the viewer too, where you're just watching her come into acceptance of herself at the same time, and it's not it's there's not a whole lot of tension, but I mean that in a good way, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it
I would
does.
classify the pacing is gentle. It's a very gentle show.
And that was, one of the problems towards as it was getting towards the end. I was wondering how they are going to actually wrap this up, because by episode like 12, you're just not sure they're going to actually stick the landing. But I think they did. It's not necessarily the ending that you wanted, which is everyone is happy, right? You can't have that. But I think it's the ending that was right for the character arc. And I did appreciate that they went through all of that to tell a proper story and wrap it up.
I agree. And the model, the 3D model that they use for the fish, the golden fish, is really cool. So if you like anime as an art form, you should at least check out the fish model. It's really neat.
Yeah, it's Hitomi ends up joining the what is it, the art photography club later, because she and Kohaku joins, it's the magical art photography club. But so there's a fairly detailed discussion about art forms and such too, that I thought was pretty interesting and added a extra layer onto this story of Hitomi. So let me just show you something else, which, as always, it's this one. So this is a map of the area that the anime covered. So this is Nagasaki. Nagasaki is actually in Kyushu. And so for this season, it's the second one set in Kyushu, the other one being Zombieland Saga. Okay. But people, these are all real life locations. So people actually went and obviously took photographs and used, the material that was there, the locations that were there in the anime. And it's pretty goddamn faithful. I think you can see the cityscape here. So yeah, I think it's good for the prefectures outside of Tokyo to have anime set in them, and it brings a little bit more attention to areas that you, as viewers, might not recognize. And even in Japan, there were some people saying, wow, I really appreciate that this is set not in Tokyo, but in my hometown or close to my hometown or in my prefecture, So yeah, I would definitely recommend the show to anyone who's more interested in drama, and the whole magic and sci-fi elements are relatively in the background. It's just part of everyday life. They don't put a huge focus on it, except for like when the school cultural event happens and they do hold an event, but it's more, like I said, about drama and about Hitomi and her personal growth and personal acceptance. And I enjoyed that arc. Okay.
So You mentioned something in there. So, did you guys say this was a healing type of anime?
I don't think it technically qualifies for one, but the it sort of feels like it could maybe be on the cusp of becoming a healing anime. Just because it's so soft and gentle and slow paced. But again, not slow paced as in oh it's boring. It's just it takes its time and allows the characters to do what they need to do to grow.
Albert, do you have a link for that posted up or?
Sure. I could put it in the chat.
Oh, okay. I'll have to check it out later because that looks interesting. When I look at that.
The black and white scenes really pop if you have an OLED TV, by the way. They're really
Nice.
Or phone, I guess. Most people would probably have an LED phone over a TV.
Sounds like an interesting show, but I'm going to have to say that this show probably hurts because of Amazon. Because anything on Amazon usually for me gets brushed under the rug because I forget about
Me too,
even
because their
checking it.
player is horrible, and I hate it with the passion of 1,000 fiery suns.
You know, I have to like check it out, but I'm not recommending this. But I almost kind of want to go to Amazon and like check out their stream player and see if I can like rip the video from the stream player to throw it into something else because that's pretty easy to do. 9 times out of 10, I've never had trouble at any site but YouTube, and there's ways around YouTube. So I was holding off saying anything because Albert actually kind of nailed the hammer on the head with all I wanted to say. And while I'm not bad mouthing this series at all, what really drew me in was kind of that application of coming from 50 year in the future, being used to that technology, to the present, and like the whimsicalness of the magic. I would have loved for them to use it a lot more. Like, unfortunately for me, but not to anyone who enjoyed the show, it was more of a drama piece. But I think one of the more interesting things that kind of kept me at least a little more entertained, because you know I'm all about the gimmick that I just said, was like the whimsicalness of the magic that they implemented. It wasn't very like Harry Potter like application stuff. It very few times was it like, you know, help guide this object somewhere. It really reached into the imagination. Like I haven't seen a lot of anime where the magic that they implemented was just like this almost like parlor trick, borderline entertaining like application, more so than we gotta weaponize it. We gotta, you know, it's gotta like actually help most people in daily life. It was very parlor tricky, and I did kind of like that. It's just I would have preferred more of a focus on those elements more so than the drama story. But again, not faulting the show for being that way. Just that's what I want to consume as the anime fan that I am.
Well, it was cool that you could buy it. You could go into a magical shop and say, I want the fireworks spell because I'm throwing a party. Can I have 3 of those fireworks? And so the line between magic user as a mage and magic user as a customer blurred. So it kind of was a lot like almost a nifty little technology thing than anything else.
Yeah, and that's, I think, all I had to really bring to the table there. And it's more to my dismay, but not to say the series is bad, just it's what I want as a fan, not that I always have to get what I want.
The only thing I could see bugging me about this show or about what you guys have been talking about is that you're saying it's very low-key magic, not very anything really big or impactful, yet isn't like time travel something really major?
Yes and no. In the series, they actually depicted it to have its own fair share of issues and complications, but how they did that too is kind of weird. I'm going to go like a little bit full spoiler here and just say that you would think that when you did time travel, you would like just be sent to the past. But in both applications of the Hitomi going to the past and coming back from it, instead of just appearing and disappearing out of the present and future, she was kind of sent to this transition world that consisted of like a bus kind of fare transit gimmick. And that's actually something that I kind of questioned when I was watching it. I'm like, okay, so like normally our scope of time travel is like a time-space thing, because the Earth is constantly moving. In order to go back into the place in time, you need to calculate where the Earth was, kind of a thing. And it's like in this show, we're going to explain that as we're going to send you to this alien-esque guy who's going to accept your bus fare, and you're going to use this to travel. I'm like, what? Like, how does this magic work where there's almost another plane of existence that it operates through, but yet it's its own magic too?
You just said the magic word. Magic. It's magic. It's not science.
I know. I'm just saying.
I just have to make one comment, Nick.
What?
It's funny how you're trying to explain how crazy this thing is by saying a little full.
What?
You said I'm going to go a little full spoiler. I'm like, how do you do a little full?
Oh, yeah. Because, like, it doesn't really spoil the whole series. It's just kind of saying the initial trip, episode 1, and then the return trip does happen, because that's more of the spoiler for, like, because that was kind of getting to some rocky waters around episode 11, 12. So, like, anyone who heard my spoiler is going to be like, oh, we know it's going to be okay. That guy said so.
I don't know. I'm sorry. It just, when you said that, it made me go, what? Little full? It's like saying I'm going to talk about a straight circle.
Hey, unless you have, like, a compass as you draw a circle, they can be rather curvy. Freehanding circles, not accurate.
Yeah, Amazon, you need to work on your anime advertising.
Advertising.
Or just your app, whatever you want to call that thing. Let's get to a show that Nick and I can talk about and we could be mean about. Actually, everyone can be mean about it.
I don't know. It depends. I'm usually not mean towards a lot of shows.
It's so bad I can't even find the title.
I think that's more your level of organization than the series being good or bad.
No, it's in alphabetical order. I just don't know the Japanese name.
Is it the one with 3 poop emojis on it?
Maybe.
Nice.
No, I think he means in his folder, not in the app, in the Hangout, in the Sheets window.
What's that?
Now I really want to know what this horrible stinker of an anime is.
What's the title for that? Oh, here it is. I found it.
Okay, what is this?
Orega Suki Nano wa
my
Imoto Dakedo.
I actually haven't seen it all the way through, so I can't really comment too terribly much. But I could give like basically an initial impressions worth, which is not good enough.
I quit actually just at the last episode. I'm like,
oh Jesus!
Wow.
I got enough out of you that I'm happy.
What?
But the whole thing, the whole reason
with only the animation, because that's been around the internet, was these pictures of the awful animation, or is it the story concept that's bad too?
Everything about the show is bad. Here, I'll go.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll go do my little spiel first here. But
Sure.
So also, it's known on Crunchyroll as My Writer, My Sister, and at the beginning it was just a terrible show, and the main character wants to be a writer. What Albert shown, there's how terrible the animation is, but the main character wants to be a writer, pits in to different companies to try to get published, just can't catch a break, and then all of a sudden he finds out that there's this new book about how much the main protagonist loves his little sister, and then he finds out that the writer of that book was his little sister, and because of how her upbringing and everything, she doesn't want anyone to know about it, so she convinces her brother to be the stand-in and pretend to be the writer for her to go to the meetings and everything. So um, it's him getting into a lot of just weird situations where he's put on the spot. And then, of course, his sister, which is a big Rokon, and why she wrote that story was it's always getting mad and upset at him and tried to lead him to the path of being in love with the Yamoto, which is her, right? So there's the whole thing of this whole show, which is just stupid and terrible. And as I watched the first few episodes, and I was like, okay, that's enough. I got this. What this is going to be about. I don't need to watch anymore. And then I got news that they had to delay an episode release because it wasn't up to par in the animation department. So they skipped a week of releasing a new episode, and then it came back. So I decided, I'm like, how bad was it that they had to skip a whole week? So I continued watching, and it got pretty bad actually. If I gotta get some pictures here I want to share with you, just move it to here. So this is one scene, one of the episodes, where you can see the background characters over here in the white and black shirt. Just awful. And
That's pretty dope.
They're
actually,
pretty awful.
I'm going to zoom in here actually, because if you look at him, even
Let's
looks
enhance.
really bad. And then look at those two background characters right there. It's so terrible. And
It looks like South Park or something. They look like South Park characters. That's
and
awesome.
then this is literally the very next scene. The very next scene. Oops. Grab this wrong picture right there. There it is. Now look at the two people next to her. It's an old guy in a business suit and this plain guy with a dress shirt. So it's like, what happened?
Some
and that
drawings
was-
skipped the correction stage. That's what happened.
No, there was a lot of scenes in this episode that was just off, and you're like,
I don't know. So, sometimes I think like stuff like that is when characters, now that distance wasn't kind of what I'm getting at, but like when distance is at play, they do actually tone down the facial animation, not excusing that, but just saying that since you're from a new perspective here, you actually have dimension to the nose, you can't just reapply what you used in the previous scene.
I don't think that's what was happening here. But
Yeah, I'm not saying that I absolutely think that was happening, but I mostly
But
mean like
those
characters in the
shirts, those
extreme
shirts.
background.
But-
No, I think this image has more personality.
Yeah, personality, sure.
Got more
one and
character
only you
to
hate.
it.
No, I'm kidding.
So this show is just, I kept on watching because I wanted to see how bad the quality was, how terrible it got. Even the names on some of the characters were just really weird. Like the main artist
Oh,
was called Double Ahego.
No.
No,
The
Double
other one
Peace.
first.
Ageho
Nope. The face first, then the double peace sign.
Ageho Double Peace Sensei, yeah.
Yes, there you go.
Nice.
So every time she would introduce herself, she would always put up her two fingers and then like whatever. I won't make that face, but
No. I don't think you can make that face. I don't think it's possible. You don't really have the anime type of face. But am I at a good point where I could just kind of provide my own 2 cents on where I'm at in the story, or no?
Oh, go ahead.
Before I continue. So kind of like along the lines of what Tank is saying, this isn't really a good show. What you really kind of have to be wanting to watch it for is pretty much the otaku trash that it is. The writer, like one of my personal gripes with this series is how this guy kind of fronts as the writer of the series, and then like does not feel bad about himself when he has to like go do signature events and stuff. Like this dude is like totally giving away the signature to everyone who's a fan of his sister. And he never once even tries to, like, amongst his friends or anything, go, hey, do you want the actual signature of the actual writer? Go to, like, I get that they're trying to hide that, but like they never like show him suffering with how they're like, you know, deceiving the masses, which not that I expect this show to do that, and maybe they do it later because I haven't finished it, but I doubt it. This one actually kind of almost gets to kind of like what Ero Manga Sensei was about. Not correlating the two exactly. Ero Manga was, you know, a whole tier different, but there's a lot at play when it comes to his sister being naive with a lot of otaku savvy terms. The fact that their illustrator is I always want to call it ahoge, like the antenna hair, but it's the yeah, whatever gal face thing that I actually didn't know was a term till I watched this anime myself. It's kind of like an Edo illustrator, so she kind of has her own thing that she always brings to the table, like whenever, and like this series actually did do a lot of censoring. There's a lot of not clothed scenes where the drawings themselves are like censored with this little stamp graphic that they went with. And the series also hides a lot of fan service that way. But it's so extreme that I kind of wonder, like, is this thing going to be like halfway uncensored when it hits Blu-ray release? I don't ever go back and check those out, just throwing it out there. But I'm kind of worried about like what's that Blu-ray going to look like? Is it going to be just as censored as the anime or not? Because that's normally the case, is they kind of like uncensor it for the Blu-ray, but I forget which anime it was, but what was aired to TV was not censored, but then the Blu-ray was. It was kind of like the inverse. That was like one of the strangest things ever. But I do kind of wonder what they're going to do with the censors with this one, but not enough to ever invest in going to find it because I'm probably not going to buy it. But I do kind of like the scenarios that are presented because it's that type of rom-com stuff that. Not rom-com, sitcom, that is like purposed for otaku. Like, you know, the scene, I think it was like episode 2 or 3, his sister literally asks him, hey, my editor told me that I should include more like Panchira moments into my writing. Like, what is that? She asks her brother, and the brother's like, oh, I don't want to tell you what this like erotic concept is. Go look that up on the internet. She's like, I'm not looking it up on the internet. You know, you tell me. And it had a lot of that, you know, otaku bait, fan servicey stuff. So that's kind of what you have to be in for when you're watching this series. It's definitely not for the story. One of the things that I could say as my final piece on it was, this season in particular, I was getting ready to say, what happened to the ending illustrations? There was plenty of anime in the predecessing seasons that every episode you got like this illustration ending. And I was about ready to say it didn't happen at all this season. I was really delayed in starting this series. And this is one of the only, I don't know if there's another one I haven't started that they gave you an ending illustration for every episode, but like, oh, that didn't die. Cool.
Yeah, this show is just trash, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's my whole thing on this.
Like, if you are a otaku trash who likes the eroticism of anime, absolutely, by all means, watch it. If that's not you, then, yeah, just, you'll know it right away.
I mean, even if you like, you know, the erotic nature of anime, I would not recommend this to anybody, because you might as well just go watch like High School DxD again instead of watching
again.
This. So this is a screenshot from episode 6. I had to look it up after hearing about the story, and in the credits you see someone named Shojiki Komatta. All right, and that's a pseudonym meaning honestly, I'm really bummed, or I'm really screwed. I think that's what they called it on Crunchyroll. Honestly, I'm screwed, right? It's
That's awesome.
so this was like episode 6, and then it hit the Twitter feeds, of course, and people are like, "Oh my God, someone's about to die on this production because it's so shitty." And yeah, that was that's what it came known for, along with some memes, because of all the horrible animation and production issues. It's not just that the Sakuga is horrible. It's like completely off model from the get go, and there's no consistencies. There are scenes with like, in one scene, they might have like a phone of one color, and in the exact same next cut, it's a different color. There are 6 fingers, hands here and there, that kind of thing. It's just, it's right up there with the Shirobako Purun Purun Tengoku, scenes where it's just melting. So
I actually forgot to mention this, but like one of the things that are very off-putting to me about this anime is the way that the main protagonist's face is drawn. Like his character design seems like it was almost meant to be female, but then they converted it to like some kind of weird short-haired male style like afterwards, and like his face just looks feminine to me and totally like mismatched to like, because like they use these overly large eyes, and normally when they do that for the female characters, they'll still like tone down the eyes for the male characters, but that did not happen here.
he's completely generic.
Yeah, and even him as a character just annoys the hell out of me. Like, I don't know, just something bugs me about him. I can't even get behind him as a character, as a protagonist, being like, "Yeah, you got your harem." No, it's like, dude, you don't deserve what you're getting. And I don't know, just I don't even know how some of the relationships even got to where they got to, and I'm unwilling to watch it again to check and see how, because it's just that bad. Um, I don't know. It's just a terrible show. Um,
We should move along.
it's only what, 9 episodes, so it's actually a very short series too.
Oh, is it not all 12?
I don't think it made 12, but
Maybe got to 10. I know it was short.
It's 10. I'm looking at it right now. It's 10.
Yeah, I only watched to 9. That's right. Yeah, so yeah, let's go ahead and move along. We're going to go to what was it that Sean wanted to talk about?
Oh, those goddamn Gundams.
Godzilla? I don't have a title card for Gundam, so we'll do Godzilla again.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's what you meant. I thought you really misheard.
I don't
Close
get the
enough.
title card.
Yeah, it's kind of like Godzilla. So Gundam the Origin wrapped up. It's one of those like Sunrise OVAs that like one comes out every 8 months, and it's just absolute torture, and you forget everything. And I think this one at least has some like useful recaps, and the story is not as convoluted as Gundam Unicorn, which I totally lost track of. But anyway, Gundam the Origin is actually pretty good. I think there's like 6 episodes, but it's like the origin story of Char, and by extension, the origin story of the space Nazis and the Gundams. So it's like you're not dropped in the middle of things. It does sort of establish, the ideas in a sensible way. But the animation is really, really nice. Like the animation is so nice that it actually makes the show. Like the character designs are just like they're so nostalgic, and the animation is so like charismatic and cartoony that it makes you feel like you're watching something from the 80s, but it looks way better than anything from the 80s. Yeah, I'm just really surprised by it. Like it's like it remakes the nostalgic world of Gundam better than Gundam itself has ever done, like at any period of time. and it kind of has like a visual sense of humor. Like I said, the animation is kind of cartoony, and the character designs are also kind of like cartoony and fun to look at, and it's really cool. It's and then it follows the story of Shar, who is not Shar. He's like he assumes someone else's identity, and he's like trying to get the ruling family of the space Nazis killed, like for revenge, because they killed his parents like when he was a kid and like destroyed his family. And so like Shar is just like this endlessly charismatic, like cunning anti-hero, you know, who's trying to rise up the ranks of the space Nazis. He joins the army and everything, but his whole objective is to like systematically get each one of them killed without revealing his identity. So you can the story doesn't quite get there because this is all like set up for what would become Mobile Suit Gundam, the TV show. But you can start to see him like lay plans of like, oh, he's trying to get close to this like boy prince or something, and he's gonna find some way to get him killed. But so Gundam the Origin has like, you know, it starts with Char's like, he's not Char yet. He assumes that identity, but it starts with him like as a little boy, and you see his parents get killed, and then he sort of goes from like one foster family to another while trying to keep his identity secret because, you know, the ruling space Nazis are like trying to find him and get rid of him. You know, because he's kind of like the heir to the throne. He knows what really happened. So you got to see him, like the first couple episodes take place when he's a kid, and then he later on he becomes a teenager, and he joins the space Nazis and goes to like training school. And meanwhile, like the Gundams are being developed, and like there's this whole thing where there's like kind of the Albert Einstein, you know, of the Gundam universe. Like he's going to make the super samurai robot, and there's like this struggle to like get him and secure his technology, and like, you know, between the space Nazis and the Earth Federation. So that's all happening in the background. And, you know, meanwhile, Char is like rising through the ranks, and like, so the story kind of shifts gears a lot, but it does it in like manageable chunks. Like this episode takes place in this period of time, and Char's this many, he's this old, and he's doing this thing, and here's like, this is an episode of a chapter of his life. And then the next episode, you know, will take place even later, and you'll see him doing something else. And the end of the whole series has this like pretty awesome space battle. You know, it's like Star Wars. Like there's so much action at the end, like, and you know, all of it's like really well done, even though it's like CG. But that's okay. The CG is like awesome. It's, I don't know. I was really impressed by Gundam the Origin. I think it's also like the most accessible Gundam because it starts at the beginning, and it's not. It's like, I don't know. I guess like I always wanted to get into Gundam, but I never could because Gundam was just too old. Like every time I approached it, it's just like, this is too old and crappy, and I can't watch it. Like even if I try to watch something like Char's Counterattack, like I start to watch it, but it still looks kind of old and janky. And the story is already too convoluted by that point that I can't tell what's going on. So like there was never any like entry way for me into like proper UC Gundam. But I think Gundam the Origin like totally succeeds in doing that. So I think if you're ever curious about Gundam, but you just can't like find the proper entry way, then Gundam the Origin, like, I highly recommend it.
How many episodes is it?
6. So it's 6, and each one is like an hour long or so.
Some of them are like hour plus, so they're movie length basically.
Yeah, it's like the movie and the OVA have sort of blurred, like the lines have blurred in Japan. So I'm pretty sure they put each of those in the theaters or something.
Is it streaming anywhere?
I don't know.
Now, technically, if you have VPN, you can watch it on YouTube.
Ah,
You should download it from the torrents. There, I don't think this is easily available.
But it is, if you get the download version, then it is fully subtitled in English, French, a couple other languages, I believe, Chinese. Let me check subtitles. Hong Kong Chinese, Taiwan Chinese, English, French, Korean. So pretty extensive. To add to Sean's comments, I actually have not finished watching the last episode 6 that just dropped. But Gundam The Origin is based on the manga, which is based on the TV series. And the manga is written and illustrated by Yoshikazu Yasuhiko, who is the original character designer for the TV series. So then I forget exactly how it came about, but he was approached to kind of retell, the first Gundam story. And he took it on, and there are changes to the TV series, things that don't quite make sense, things that the director Tomino was forced to take on from Sunrise because they had to sell toys. So he had like this combination flying armor, fortress thing, upgrade for the Gundam that doesn't actually make sense in terms of the world setting, but he had to shove it in there so that they could sell more toys, right? So all of that was stripped out. Yas is retelling the story, and on top of which, he adds in the detailed background that became this series of OVAs. So the manga itself covers the entire story of the First Year War with flashbacks inserted that tells the origin of how Zeon became Zeon, how Castle became Char, and then this was, the story was highly regarded, well received. You get things that you don't know about, because one of the Zabi generals, Dozel, is like a gorilla of a man, but his face is all scarred up and wrecked. Well, it tells you what happened, how he came to get those scars. And then in the original story, there are talks about, at the beginning of the war at Loom, the Federation got defeated because Zeon had developed mobile suits, and you get to see that actually in action. So all of that, adds a tremendous amount of backstory to the Universal Century storyline, and I think it is an accessible point. You do have to contend with some choices about CG battle scenes that I'm not a huge fan of, but I also understand you cannot do that hand drawn these days. It would kill. It would absolutely kill. But Bandai and Sunrise put in a ton of money to make sure that this origin arc is well animated, and it is a very, very high production value. But if you are interested in learning about the entire story and want to read it in manga form, it's all available. It may be a little bit hard to find, but Vertical put out a adaptation. They translated it and adapted it and put it out as this very high quality manga series. And it's all completed. I own the set. I highly recommend it. And a lot of the story makes a lot more sense if you read through the manga. And even at the ending, there's things that have changed, that Yas changed from the TV series to make it more, to have important characters be more available and active in the storyline, and also to clear up some of these weird things that doesn't actually make sense. And in universe, he corrected all those. So That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, you mentioned like the other Zabi characters, and then it occurred to me that actually all those characters, not just Char, but like even all the side characters are just like absolutely magnetic on the screen. You know, as a combination of like their character designs, like they're meticulous and like interesting character animation, and like the nostalgic and kind of over the top of voice acting and dialogue, and yeah, like
Yeah.
all those characters are great. Like, yeah, there's that like gorilla man with the scars, but also he has like a wife and kids, and it's just like he has a lot of scenes where he's trying to be a family man, even though he's like a cartoon anime guy,
Yeah.
you know, who can't do anything but like shout in this anime voice.
Yeah, and that little baby girl becomes Minerva in Unicorn. And she's also, I believe, in narrative, right, which I have not seen. But Sunrise apparently is making some effort into telling stories in the universal century again. I don't think that's a wise decision, but because there's too much baggage. But narrative came out, Thunderbolt came out. They're all set in the universal century timeline. So, but this is the definitive 1 year story, if you want to call it that, and I would recommend the manga.
I really hope they make more anime. Like, if they make more of it, I would totally watch it. So I think like Old Gundam is definitely something that needs to be remade.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not disagreeing, but to actually adapt the entire series, even minus all the origin OVA stuff, I think is a huge undertaking.
Yeah, it's kind of a be careful what you wish for thing, because if they make it to the quality of and the production pace of Origin,
yeah,
I'll be an old man when that thing's done.
It's not feasible. All the actors would be dead. I think some of the actors are dead. So, yeah. But if you can find it, streaming on YouTube, or if you want to get it through methods, go check it out.
All right. Thank you, guys. That was Godzilla.
That was Godzilla, yeah. Godzilla the Origin.
Yeah, Godzilla Origin. Back when Gundams fought Godzilla.
Those were the days.
Next up, let's stick with the gold lettering here and do Double Decker. I was trying to search this title on Google and it brought me to Double Decker buses. So, Jessica, you watched it, right?
I did. I watched the whole thing. I don't really have a lot to say because it's just a dumb comedy, and that's all it pretends to be, and that's all it really is. And I had fun watching it. The last 2 episodes try and shoehorn in an actual plot, and they're, in my opinion, the poorer for it is that the show is at its best when it's just being stupid. So, yeah, that's really all I got to say on it.
Yeah, I don't think I have much to say either. I did watch it all the way through, and it's one of those titles that, while it entertained me, I don't think it really pulled off a whole heck of a lot. While I wasn't impressed with its anime ending, I did actually kind of enjoy that shoehorn narrative because how they correlated it with that one taxi scene guy, and just its general concept. It's like I appreciated it at a rudimetric level, but not one to make it like endearing to me, or in my opinion, like anime in general. Like, yeah, it was a cool plot, and earlier I kind of mentioned that its title, like even when the anime shows it, seems like this like Sega era video game thing, and with the ending it gave, it was kind of like one of those zany concepts back in the day. Like even Final Fantasy was known for doing some really, really strange stuff at times. And while I don't personally recommend it, I'm not going to say it was like terrible or anything.
No, I don't feel that it was a waste of my time, but I also don't feel that there's enough substance there to say that you need to watch it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will say though that the character models drop in and out between traditional 2D animation and 3D models a lot, and it's kind of jarring because when that happens makes really no sense. And sometimes a character will be 3D and they'll be talking to a character that's in 2D, and that just highlights the disparity between the two. That got on my nerves a bit.
Yeah, I can't really say like what like the series did to charm me per se, but that's also why I'm not like saying too much strong about it. I guess I did like it for its ending, perhaps, just because it was out there. Like normally I appreciate out there anime concepts, but I don't know, this one just didn't feel like super anime to me. So not that I really necessitate anime have like an overabundance of typical otaku tropes, but like when it doesn't and it's not a successful show, like I don't know if this is really going to catch on with the masses here or in Japan, even for that matter. Like what's its point? Like I don't know how popular this thing was in Japan, but I haven't heard too many people talking about it, so I doubt it's really going to take off over here.
All right. Let's go ahead and go into the next title. Yagate Kimi ni Naru. One of those other titles you can't see in this background. Unto or Bloom unto you. Into you. One of those titles that's super hard for people to find, I think. What was this on High Dive, right?
Yes.
So unless you had what was it, VRC or what was it? Is that what it's called? Or
VRV.
VRV.
Yeah, or actual subscription to High Drive.
Yeah. Which I don't, so I wasn't able to watch it.
Well, if you have Crunchyroll, you might as well pay a few extra and get VRV, and you would have access to both.
Never.
You got to watch this, though. You really owe it to yourself. If you like romance, you have to watch this.
I'm not a fan of romance, but Yuri, yes.
I would say that as far as Yuri anime go, this is right up there with Sweet Blue Flowers. It is that good, seriously. And it's because, at least for me, it's realistic. And it shows a relationship that feels real alongside characters that also feel real. And it is really slow and it takes its time to allow the romance to blossom between the two characters. So you're going to need patience to watch this one, but you'll be rewarded if you do.
So is it like super meta or genre aware? I think the last like Yuri anime I saw was like super meta and genre aware. Like the main character read like Yuri manga or something, and then it was like super tropey.
There is a scene where one of the characters buys a Yuri book, but it's just one scene.
Okay.
And it was played for laughs, and then the show continues on its meandering pace, showcasing the relationship between the two characters and how it grows. So I wouldn't consider it to be very tropey, except for perhaps the end when there's a play, because in a lot of Yuri manga and anime, there's always a play, right?
Is one of them the prince?
No, it's not.
Okay, so it's not that kind of thing.
Generally, historically anyway, plays in Yuri allow the characters to act out their true feelings because they're, quote, not allowed to in real life. And this play does mirror, oh crap, Toko's, I forgot her name there for a second. It does mirror Toko's inner turmoil a bit and allows her to make conclusions about herself by acting in the play. That's really the only trope that super duper popped out at me, but it was used in such an effective manner that I'm not going to call it as a strike against the show.
Okay.
So the other Yuri title this season was Citrus, right? Or this year?
That wasn't this season.
Not
this,
yeah, no,
this year.
That's
Sorry,
the one
not
I was
season.
thinking of. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, this genre is like gone off the deep end, and everything's postmodern now.
No, everything about Citrus was awful.
Mm-hmm.
Citrus was not smart enough to be called postmodern.
Yeah, no, that was awful. So no, this is far better. And no, the reason I actually I think I mentioned this during our preview. I started watching this because the it's an anime adaptation of a manga, but the anime itself is the series composer is Juka Hana. Hold on a second. Let me make sure I'm not screwing up the name here. Yeah, so it's the author is Juka Hanada. Sorry, the series composer, and she also did A Place Further Than the Universe, right? So that was my main reason why I wanted to check this out to see what what could be done, because I think I read the first volume of the manga and it's interesting, but I wasn't sure how well it would translate into anime. And I will tell you that for this season, this is in my top 5 for the season. I thought the adaptation worked relatively well, and the story ended up, beyond the point where I had read in the manga, actually much more interesting, and it ended up being a much more sweeter romance than I expected it to be. Having said that, there are, because it is shoujo, it's Yuri, there's a lot of internal dialogue that they have to depict, and that can be, it's the telling instead of showing, right? And so that can be a little bit lengthy and problematic, but in fact, later on, you do get different points of view from some of the different characters in the story. So you get where they're coming from. There is, depiction of adult lesbian relationship that you see that is presented as perfectly normal, perfectly natural. They don't make a big fuss about it, although one of them has to keep it on the lowdown because of because of her profession. But it's just depicted as normal. It's not something like, they're hiding it on purpose or being super secretive or tropey. So I appreciated that. I appreciated that the story is, how do I want to say this without? So yeah, the adaptation, I thought they did a good job. A lot of the manga panels involved separation that the main character Yu feels from others, that she doesn't quite fit in with what expectation of love and relationships are, and her sense of detachment. All of that was depicted beautifully. They used a lot of water scenes to depict some of that detachment and distance. And I'm not sure if that's because of the series writer or if that's a directorial decision by the director. But all of that, I think, worked. I think we already mentioned that episode 3 has a phenomenal sequence in it. And it doesn't quite live up to that in the later episodes, but there are scenes where if you look at it carefully, there's a lot of symbolism involved that you see within the way the frame is shot, or the anime is created. So the layout design, the music, beautiful backgrounds, involve characters that actually change over the period. I think it's a really, really good anime. The only problem I had is that I thought this would go to a certain point in the manga story that offers some sort of resolution, but it falls short of that and never gets to the cultural festival. So at once you understand that the story is ongoing, but at the same time you're like, I really wish they could have concluded that arc. So that's a ding against it, in my opinion. But again, I think it's well worth a watch.
So, is it like almost all these Yuri titles that they release always take place in high school or something?
Simoon didn't, though it does feature teenage characters, but it took place in a fantasy land where everyone's born female.
What's this title?
Simoon.
Never heard
It's
of that.
really, really good. Here.
You're going to have to share that title with me later. We'll see how it is. Let's go ahead and move on to our next title then. Into the Bloom sounds really great. I really want to watch it. I just talked to someone on YouTube here, and they gave me access to their high dive, so I could check it out. Don't worry, they're my friends.
No, I get that, but jeez.
What else is this? Oh, Kaze ga tsuyoku fuiteru.
Yep. So, who's watching that, by the way?
I am.
Oh, good.
Hand raised if you didn't audibly hear that.
Is this the one with the archery thing?
No.
No, that's Tsurune from Kyoto Animation. This one is from what's the studio? It's something. Hold on a second. I'm gonna need to look this up. Great. I'm not organized here.
From Toei Animation. Just kidding.
No, I don't think so. But anyway,
Production IG.
yeah, Production IG. Okay. So this is a story set in a university. Okay, so that's always a good sign, I think. All right. And so it's about these university students who live in the dorm, and through a series of events during the first episode, you find out they're actually in the dorm for long distance running club, right? Or the official school's long distance varsity dorm. None of them are, except for one guy who knew that all along. And because there are 10 of them, he announces that we're going to run the Hakone Ekiden, which is a relay race that takes over 2 days to complete, with 10 runners, each runner holding a section of that race. Okay. This was I think I mentioned this in the previews, but it's based on a novel by Shion Miura, who also wrote Funeo Amu, or The Great Passage, which is the anime movie story about dictionaries. Okay. And so, yeah, it's much more of a character study, I think, than about a sports anime. It is a sports anime, but it's not quite what you would expect. It's popular enough that it has a manga adaptation, as well as a live action movie, as well as a stage play. Okay, and for those of you who don't know, Hakone Ekiden, like I mentioned, is a race that takes place every year from January 2nd to January 3rd over 2 days. And it started when some Japanese participants to the Olympics came back and said, if Japan wants to actually compete on the world stage, we need to have a national relay, a national race that supports long distance running. And so that's how it came about. The course looks like this. You go from Tokyo to the mountains of Hakone. Most of it is, relatively flat with a few ups and downs, but the last segment 5 on the first day, you have to go way the hell up, and it's just brutal watching that. And on the second day, you go back that course again with different runners. So there are people that specialize in hill climbing or going downhill, and fast running, and segments, and that's the distance that it covers. So really interesting. The 10 characters are everywhere from the first year university student to the fourth years who are trying to graduate and get a job, and everywhere in between. And you have characters that are runners to absolute horrific, have no athletic skills, like the character Oji, who is actually a complete manga otaku. And so
he's my spirit animal, by the way.
Yeah, it's interesting how it comes about. And you have to at once, this is anime, so yes, it's completely ridiculous to expect these disparate people who happens to live in a dorm to be able to even qualify for this nationally prestigious long distance running race, right? But at the same time, yeah, it's not so much about how well they do, but it's how they develop and how they all come to have a vision, a goal, and it's about the journey that they take to try to get to that goal. So I think it hits a lot of heartstrings. It's a lot of character development. There are clearly characters that you might favor. There are character moments where you hate that character because of things that they say, but are able to forgive. It's very, very drama heavy. But overall, I would recommend it, and it's a 2-course show, so it's continuing on this season, and we'll see what happens. I have not read the story, I have not read the manga or the novel, so I have no idea whether they even make it, whether they even qualify, because only 20 teams get to run the Hakone Ekiden every year. The first 10 teams they qualify based on their performance from the previous year. The other 10 spots are open, and your university team has to qualify for it through going through trials and beating out other competition, right? So it's a tremendous task, and yeah, it's a very, very popular thing to watch. The entire road, the race that takes place, the road is lined with cheering supporters for various universities, or even just locals coming out to cheer the team on. So that's what I have to say. But Jessica,
this one is one of my top 5 for the season. It's really inspiring, especially for someone who's pretty darn sedentary. I really like the angle of self-improvement through running, and how trying to do something physical affects pretty much every aspect of your life, your outlook on life, and your ability to do other things as well. So the episodes might focus on a particular character and the struggles that they're dealing with because of the running, and how they're able to come to a conclusion that allows them to keep running while at the same time solving the conflict that they had previously had. And for some characters, that takes longer than others. Some characters devolve, and everything has to just come together. And I look forward to this show every single week. I really, really like it, and I highly recommend it, even if you don't like sports. It's a good one because it's more about the drama than it is about the actual competition.
That was actually kind of my comment. Every season, I kind of look for a show that I can, believe it or not, run to, because a lot of times I like to take a show to the gym and watch a show while, not going to the gym, which usually happens when I have to, like, say, watch that guy over there. But I actually found this a difficult show for that to be my initial inspiration, where it was so drama heavy in so far its first half that it wasn't that show for me thus far. But it could start going that way in its second core after, like, all the exposition is kind of set up and the motivate and all this is dealt with. It could transition into being like a show that depicts a lot of running. It just hasn't done that yet. Not to its demerit or anything, because it's not necessarily faulting it as an anime, just it's not the one that I can easily, like, sync up to in the gym and just, like, run. And I was hoping that's what it would be at first, but it still has a second core to transition to that. Not that I necessitate that it has to. But one of the things that I was really impressed with and I thought was going to be a gimmick was how it was called, Run into the Wind. And in the first episode, you kind of have that perspective piece where the character is running and the wind is whistling. And I thought that was going to be a lot more prevalent through the series. Again, it can still become that way. It's just, it was almost like the hook that I thought I would keep coming back for was kind of more of like a bait so far.
So the actual title is Running with the Wind.
Yeah.
In English. You said running into the wind, but that's not.
I get you. I understand. I got you. So I do appreciate it as a show. I do like it. I do like what it's doing. It wasn't what I hoped it to be initially, not faulting it again, just because, again, it just wasn't the piece that I could take to the gym with me. Not that it has to be. But I do enjoy the show. I can't say that I've seen a lot of, like, production IG sports shows, because they're usually more of a sci-fi, I thought. But yeah. Yep.
Production IG
actually
does. They actually do a lot of sports anime. Like, I think they did what is it, Kuroko no Basket or whatever, and then they did Haikyuu, and then they did Ballroom, and, like, this is their latest one. But yeah, they kind of have a tradition of that now, like, parallel to the sci-fi stuff that they're also known for.
Understood. I guess I just haven't seen a lot of their sports stuff because I'm definitely not of the Haikyuu demographic. Haven't seen the basketball one either.
Yeah, it's not for me either, but I think those shows are like more well regarded than the sci-fi stuff they've made lately.
Mm-hmm.
All right, should we go to the next title then?
Sure.
All right. Next up, I got To Aru Majitsu no Index.
Okay, this is another one that we're, like, halfway through, right?
Yeah, it's a 2-core, but the only reason I want to bring this up is because I've noticed there's been a lack of the 3B animes.
I wouldn't call this one of those.
It's not, but, we're missing the butts, battles, and Was it Bust?
I forget what Tyler's acronym for that was, but yeah, pretty much the rip clothing battle anime of the season that like always seems to exist.
Now we just have these battle animes.
Isn't there a
Dabba-dabba-dabba
Sanron
days.
Kagura this season?
There is, but I haven't watched it. There's like a continuing core of that, so that might have filled that niche.
A friend of mine randomly gifted me one of those games for Christmas. So
Jeez.
yeah,
my
I've confirmed that is one of those games.
I just kind of want to say my initial piece on it was and again, I can be severely mistaken here, but I almost feel like the franchise has fallen from grace with this season. It's really out there, and it's hard for me to express exactly why. Because I mean, usually like a lot of the cool sci-fi stuff was from Railgun anyway. The magic was it was kind of like they always relied on a system that they used terminology for that they never explained. But that doesn't lose me as a viewer. What really lost me as a viewer in this particular one was how jarring it was. From the end of one episode into the next episode, you really feel like you've missed something sometimes, especially when you're watching this thing week to week, in my opinion. Sometimes I would go back like, whoa, did I just miss a whole week and skip a whole episode? No, I didn't. Okay. And even in the episodic anime, like even out of the outro to intro scenes, like there was a lot of scenes that were just really jarring, and I kind of had to gather where the story went really quickly, in my opinion. And kind of a spoiler point at one point here, there was an arc that I really didn't like, set in I guess England or London. I'm bad with my lore, but you know, it was the three princess Queen Arthurian thing that, you know, all the cops apparently had, all the police in, I'm just going to say England because we're just going to go with it, could be, had like suits of armor stashed in their locker at work. And when this princess was taking over, they donned their night gear, headed out to the streets, flew on their lances, and battled like a squadron of witches that were completely new to the series. It's like, okay, we get that espers existed and the magic users existed, but all of a sudden we have this flying volition of witches fighting knights, and it's like, what is going on here anymore? Like, what? Where did you go with this series? Now, I still like a lot of the railgun stuff. It's just this season of Index seems really trippy to me, and maybe that's my impression, and everyone else is following along just fine. But I said it.
Right. I'm sorry, I just got a message that says Nick must be looking up to God for notes because you keep on looking up.
Oh,
I know your TV there. She didn't notice before the hangout you showed us that.
I'm at my parents', so I set up the TV as an extra monitor, so the sheet and my internet browser, I have to move the cursor over, is over there.
Hey, whose birthday?
No one's birthday.
But Toaru no Index, I actually had to rewatch the whole thing.
It was my sister's birthday on New Year's Eve, but she's gone on a trip, so.
So for Index, I rewatched the whole first season, second season, because I never finished the second season. And so when I got into this, I did notice, like, for the first two arcs, there was a discrepancy. And I don't know what it was. Something did seem off to me, too. And it seems like in this show, or this season, I should say, it's taking place a lot more out of
Academy City.
Yeah, like he's always traveling. He's always going somewhere else, and they just also released some new information, which I thought was kind of interesting, which was kind of fun too. Was that like they're not allowed to leave Academy City, but he's leaving so much, and so there's like definitely a lot of things going in play here. I never knew they couldn't just walk out of Academy City. They had to go through all this paperwork, so it's like, whoa. But they also they gave a new girl, which they kind of introduced in the second season, some more screen time, which is trying to get closer to Toma. a lot of new information is given to a lot of other people. What's her name? Mikasa or is it Misaka? Misaka?
Misaka.
Yeah, Misaka. She gets some new information and also seems to be trying to get closer to Toma, which I kind of like seeing that. But it's still too soon to tell, for me at least, if this is going to be an enjoyable season since it is in the middle of the second core. But what can I say? It's Index. If you're watching it, then if you at least watch it this far, you're probably going to keep on watching it. There's nothing in it that's made me want to quit it. We're finding out more and more characters that are just getting stronger and stronger, and more conflict with Toma and Index. So, not much to say. Did anyone else get this far besides Nick and I, or is it?
I'm at like episode 9 or 10. So I haven't finished the everything, all the episodes that aired this season, but it yeah, you need a refresher because it's been so many years since season 2. So
Is it like 5 years or?
I think it's longer. I mean, the movie was in between, but that's a standalone. So yeah, yeah. I don't have much to say. I mean, I was always more on the Railgun side versus Index side. So I'm actually looking forward to season 3 of Railgun this year.
It said Index 2 finished airing in April 1st, 2011. So not counting the Railgun in between, but Index specifically.
Right. So 7 years.
I don't know. Railgun never got me. I just until the second season. This first season I hated. Didn't even finish it. Then when the second season started with Sisters, I got all on board and loved it. But yeah. I'm sorry. I'm trying to find the next name card for the next title here.
Well, I mean, what are people looking forward to this coming season, coming year?
Hey, I want to get to some stuff from this season. So
what's the Skullface guy title?
We're running out of time.
I know. Let's not do the next season already. Let's keep going with this one.
All right. So this is something I just wanted to briefly mention. The Japanese title is Gaikotsu Shoten in Honda-san, which they've translated as Skull-Faced Bookseller Honda-san. And as you see, that is the main character there, who is a skeleton. And it is a short anime, so it doesn't take a lot of time. It is about a bookseller, and it's just a depiction of behind the scenes and daily life at a major bookstore and all his interactions with customers, including customers that come from overseas. So this is one that, I think this might be from the first or second episode, where a blonde, blue-eyed girl shows up, and she's got a sign that says in Japanese, "I'm a Swedish fujoshi," right? And she's like, "Oh my God!" And then there's also a lot of things that you would recognize if you've watched a lot of anime that is funny in a sense, because here they're talking about the stock, that there's so much stock left over, and the scene that you see is actually from Nausicaa, right, where little girl Nausicaa is like, "No, there's nothing here to see. No, there really isn't," and that's been used as a meme in Japan. So things like that, and his coworkers are not normal people either. They're like Mr. Gas Mask, and there's like one that wears like a fox mask, so that's a fox mask, and there's someone that's wearing a rabbit's head, so that's rabbit head. You're like, what? This is just a bizarre set of stories. The animation is minimal. It's really thick lines and minimally animated, but it's hilariously funny because you're just watching these people trying to deal with life in a bookstore, especially the one that carries a lot of like doujinshi and other materials. So there's all these gags about that, and I found it very funny for the amount of time I spent. And I would recommend that you check it out if you're curious about that. It shows you life that Honda-san sees customers and how he sees like overseas people coming to buy manga and doujinshi. And Sean, I think that you might actually enjoy a couple episodes if you watched it, despite the janky animation.
Okay.
I actually hated it when I first started watching it because of the broken English at the beginning, and everyone's like looking for nothing but BL. I don't know. I just episode one, I just couldn't get into it. I think it even stopped before I got to the end.
It's not for everybody.
So, are you saying we should try to give it a second chance, or?
I mean, if you don't like the first episode, you're probably not gonna like the rest because it continues along. It might not be about BL, but it might be about stalking, or it might be about how they have to take on certain property when they don't want to. It might be about anime related goods. They're like, oh no, this anime's airing. Oh, we gotta get more of these light novels in. So it's just funny. It's a funny take on everyday life in a bookstore. And personally, I would never ever want to work in a bookstore. That's my takeaway.
So, real quick, since we got a question from YouTube, they want to know the title. It's called Skullface Bookseller Honda-san, and it's on Crunchyroll.
Yes.
And if anyone else has anything to add, or should we go to the next title? And what was that title, Nick, you wanted to talk about?
Oh, there's a couple, unfortunately.
What's one?
I don't know. I forget what we have and haven't gotten through, but actually, allow me to cover this one. Well, I'm not going to recommend it. I actually did have a fair bit to say about it.
I just
The Sora to Umi no Aida, if you have the title.
Sora Ta?
To. Tio. To.
Sora To? So
Yeah, it's the one that's based on the mobile game.
Yeah, and
So-
that's actually what I wanted to say to its kind of merit and not at the same time. Like, I actually had a pretty interesting takeaway from this one. So, as absurd as its premise was.
Yeah, just start talking.
Okay. No, not a problem. So Sora to Umi no Aida was, I only watched episode 1 at the beginning when I said it was this absurd concept where fish disappeared from the oceans, and Japan apparently built like 100 space structures that were like water orbs that we would launch in rocket ships. Well, Japan specifically. No other nation actually cared about fish enough to do it at the time. Would launch, like literally do a rocket launch almost every day, go to space with a team of like 6 people, and use like these submarines to mine these super big fish that like weren't like anything of like what were in our oceans. And that's where it kind of made sense as a mobile game, because I would assume that the gacha style was the characters that you could not employ, but like the powers that you can like head out to the sea with. And it took them like 7 episodes to kind of get there, because one of the things that I hated about it, and almost like to the show's demerit, was it kind of regressed a lot, because its main cast of characters were 6 girls who were going to be the first ever josei or girl team, because like space fishing was a male only thing. And I really hated like this lapse in like employment equality. Not saying that Japan's anything like the United States, but I mean it's not that bad in either nation. I do particularly believe. Again, I'm not saying that I know Japan for certain, but I know it's not as bad as what the anime kind of depicted. And of the first seven episodes, the characters kind of had to grow. Like each one of them had kind of a problem that they had to overcome to become the cadet that would head out to space. Like one of them was afraid of being in water, and like even diving underwater in a submarine was kind of uh, like an anxiety-inducing endeavor for the person. Yet they wanted to be a space fisher, and like they make sense of it all. But kind of towards the end of it really kind of came out that it wasn't necessarily a men only, women only thing. It turns out, and this is kind of like where they had to make sense of this narrative. It was a really cool story to adapt it to a mobile game, is what I'm trying to convey. So the story was, of the first team that was sent up to space of like 3 to 6 people, there was an incident that one of them literally assumably died in, although that's still uncertain. How you can be stuck up like on a in a space underwater orb for 6 years and still be alive, I don't know, but that's what they went with. And one of the characters' motivation was to find that missing person because it was her brother. And it comes to light that the male horrible fishing team, who are constantly saying, "Oh, leave this to the men, don't you women don't have to get involved," we're only saying that because of the intrinsic danger and how they lost a member on their first flight that the government itself covered up. Nobody knew about the missing member. The government literally covered it up and swept it under the rug, and it just wasn't allowed to get out into the public. So I'm like, okay, that kind of explains the startup of the story. I kind of like to show that much more. But like it takes like the 7 episodes to get to the point where they are actually space fishing and finding all of this out. And the journey along the way, the characters were each kind of given an accent. So it's a very accent-based show. If you like voice actors who can lapse into certain accents when, flustered or just in general, then this is a show for you if you like accents. One of the things that kind of like where it didn't mesh well with its video game source, I felt, was obviously it was made like how does the scale of this thing exist? Like how does Japan by itself make like 100 fish things that only like a team, like they only have like 12 people to staff each of the 100 things, and they only go to like one a day. And that's when you kind of got to start accepting that that's the mobile game aspect. Like that's where all the players are heading to the, okay, I get that. You just couldn't put that into the anime. And one of the other things that was really interesting to the story, I thought, was how they depicted who you would summon in the game as deities. And these deities kind of lived in their own world, and you kind of had to attract the influence. Like whenever the anime showed what the deity saw, they had this old like tube TV that was like monochromatic black and white, and they would kind of peer into the lives of, the masses or whoever was going to be the space fisher. And they had to like the person to become their deity. And that whole aspect was kept secret by the public. They couldn't tell the public that, oh yeah, we go to space in submarines, and we actually, those deity shrines that we all kind of pray to and stuff, yeah, we actually talk to those guys, and they empower us and give us special attacks in our submarines. Like they had to keep that under the wraps, and I'm just kind of going, why? But it was a surprising good show for an adaptation from a game. I've seen it done a lot worse. It wasn't quite the Bahamut type of adaptation, but I've seen so much worse, so much more generic, and I thought it was going to be a much more worse show than it ended up being, and that's all I really wanted to convey. Like, while I'm not saying everyone needs to watch it, it was actually interesting because I usually do like to watch the shows that are based on games and kind of see how they correlate elements like that. It's just one of the things that draws me to anime. So, yeah. Not as bad as I thought it would be.
All right. So do you guys want to add one more title for Nick, or should we call it a day?
I don't know if they're really present to say. Seems like.
All right,
I
so
don't know.
here's. So I guess we'll call it a day for today. It's already 2 hours, so uh, thank you all for joining us here for our second look at the end of the 2018 fall season. Next up, probably in 2 weeks, we'll be having our 2019 winter season lineup. We already got a good show out there that, in my opinion, I haven't seen it yet, but I know it's going to be good because I like the title, which is The Rise of the Shield Hero. There's another title. What was that, Sean? The Pop Boogie or whatever?
Boogie Pop? I don't know. I'm not that keen on Boogie Pop, but it's out there.
Yeah, so you also have that out. There's quite a few 2 cores that are still going to be continuing on. So,
Yep. Then Mob Psycho is tomorrow, and so is Dororo, which I don't know if that's good or not, but it is curiosity.
yeah. Speaking of Mob Psycho, you should go out there and find the live action and watch it on Netflix.
No,
It's
don't.
awesome.
Don't do it.
Yeah, for people who don't know, Netflix is still putting up a lot of anime, so be sure to check it out. I got some recommendations from some friends that watch it on anime. They're old titles, but I'm going to check it out since they told me, which I think one was High Score. And
High Score. Is that the same as High Score Girl, or is that something
yeah,
else?
High School Girl.
Oh, okay.
And Backstreet Girls. I don't know. I don't remember us talking about it, but since it was a recommendation from a friend, I'm gonna sit through it and watch it, see what it's about.
Well, Aggressive Retsuko is pretty good. That has a Christmas special. If you didn't see it.
Hopefully Nick will be posting. He's our local person that posts all the movie titles since there's quite a few coming out.
No, I'm not doing it. Not anymore. It's going to be all in vain come like April anyway.
Yeah, there are a lot of movies I want to see, though.
Yeah, I think in 2 weeks or so we got Eating Your Pancreas, or maybe it's the end of the month.
Well, yeah, it's actually mid-February, like around the 14th, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Or 5th, maybe. I don't know. I have to go look it up again.
I thought it was the end of January.
It's definitely February. That much I know. Cooper.
So we'll be finding some stuff out. So be sure to check out Anime Talk on Google Plus, which is going to be gone soon. So sad. We do have a few of us that have joined. What is it, MeWe? Or is it Me? Or something?
Oui. The premier French social network.
Yeah, I do actually want to really see that I Want to Eat Your Pancreas film. It's a horrible title. Sounds like a great show, though. It's going to be Thursday, February 7th, and Sunday, February 10th. One of them, assumably, being a dub and a sub. Usually the sub comes first.
And then we also have our Discord, which is posted and locked, I think, in Anime Talk. So you can check that out. It's not active right now. We have a few people posting some stuff, which is pretty fun. Other than that, I think Zarawara, she has a posting that they're making with a bunch of alternate accounts for a bunch of people. If you want to follow them, I think. And of course, Twitter, right?
I've heard of Twitter.
A lot of people have that Twitter thingy.
Unfortunately, my stance still remains that Twitter and Facebook are the big two. As such, one of the things I don't want to get like too wordy here, but Aniplex used to be on Google Plus. They died a long time ago, but they're still going strong on Facebook and Twitter. You know, it's one thing for me to post about the movies coming up. It's a whole nother for the company who is actually putting out the movies, who promotes their own figures, episodes, and movies all on their official stream. I don't think you're going to get that on anything but the big two, unfortunately. So you don't want to rely on people like me to find out about movies and would rather hear it from the company themselves and talk with a whole bunch more people who are also interested in that. That's unfortunately where you have to go. Not saying you have to, just that's where all the companies operate on. So
I'd rather hear it from you. Just send me messages and then I'll just reshare it. Make it easy. Um, so I hope for another great year with all you guys and Jessica. You kind of left us a little early. I hope to have others join us. We're pretty flexible, I think, for time. I think this year, if we want to try to add some new people, are you guys are pretty flexible of time, or right? Or
Yeah,
it depends. There are some things I can't do, but we can discuss that later.
yeah. So if you are not in a good time zone, or you have to come in a little earlier,
you
just
live
let
in a
us know,
bad
and we
time
could
zone.
try to work something out so that all of us can chat. It's no bother. We like having fun with new people and being able to be there and have some talk. Um, Other than that, don't forget to shame Sean about watching more anime.
And yourself as well.
Hey, I've been watching anime, just a lot of the old stuff over and over again.
What do we talk about on anime or OreAni?
So, um, other than that, do you have anything else to say for our New Year's video, Albert?
No, I'm all good.
Nick?
Hope more anime cons go to 4 days. I love me some 4 day anime cons.
Sean?
Anime's bad. Don't watch it.
Okay, I'm just gonna kick Sean out of here. And then there's me. Oh yeah, just watch more anime, have fun. Other than that, thank you everyone, and good night.